Hey, what up, Internet? I'm here today with Joe Virus and Timothy. Do you want to go by Tim or just Timothy?
Timothy.
All right, Timothy Stevens, both from the Dark Sanctuary documentary that it's hard to even talk about this documentary. Like, it is such an emotional roller coaster.
Totally. From start to finish. It's
like, I didn't expect that at all. I mean, maybe a little bit, but like, I didn't expect myself to get so invested into it.
Well, good.
Have you ever been to the church? Had you ever gone to the church
no.
Back when it was open? Man, even for people who didn't see it, who never went to it in person to watch the film, their mind is blown at everything about it. And a lot of people relate to their own scenes with it.
Yeah, no. I'm all the way up in Maine. I've never even set foot down there.
Oh, you're in Maine? No
Yeah.
way. Okay, cool. Awesome.
So, what made you decide to, turn this into a documentary?
Yeah, I'm just realizing on the live stream my background is flipped. Weird stuff happening on StreamYard. So ignore that. I don't think I can change it.
I think you can.
Can I? Why don't I'm going to do that really quick, and why don't you want you riff for a second? it's bugging me.
All right. Well, while he's trying to fix that, Joe, tell me how you two got into contact to make this.
So a long time ago, Timothy had a couple of film releases at the club, and we met at the club, and he had done.
Yeah, I think you did the sound for me, right?
I did sound for I think one of them.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
And then you did a couple of screenings at the club, which I thought was really awesome. And then and kind of off and on club friends for a while. And then when he came up, he'll tell you the story of how the idea for the documentary came around. It was kind of kismet because I had been talking about doing a documentary. I had ran a record label in Dallas and a collective of bands. And I wanted to do a documentary of our time period from like 94 to 98, 2000, that like 4 or 5 year period, we kind of had the scene. We were all the bands that were playing around town. And I wanted to do a documentary about that. And then it kind of branched out. I think we need to do a documentary about the Dallas scene. And then he came to me with what him and Austin had been talking about. And I was just like, dude, let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. It was kind of a slow cooked idea, right? The club, we can get into the details, but it's been around, and it was in one location for almost 30 years,
right?
Which is unfathomable. Most clubs last 2 or 3 tops.
Right.
The most famous clubs. Thinking about help me, Joe. What's in New York?
The Limelight.
Anyway.
Studio 54.
Yeah, Studio 54. They were around for like 4 years max.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah. And a lot of clubs, as you probably know, like even up in Maine, I'm sure, the phenomena of clubs close down, but they find a new spot. So, sometimes the night persists, but it has to move locations. So this was a consistent goth night since 1994 up until 2020. And, it really was in 2020 when all of us saw this Facebook post from Don Nedler, the owner of the club, that the club was closing, that kind of the seeds of a documentary started to pop up in my mind, but it was more like someone else should do that. Like it's lockdown. I'm busy. I'm just trying to like make enough money to not like get evicted. Right.
Right.
In film production, of course, was completely shut down. So we were all having to be very creative with how to support ourselves at that time. So I thought, not me. Someone should do this, not me. Right. And then it was probably, 6 months later, maybe not quite that long, maybe for a friend of mine. He actually used to cut my hair, Austin Hayes, who's a musician as well, and in a really, long time dedicated member of the scene, came up to me and he was like, dude, I think there should be a documentary about the church. And I was like, Austin, you're right. Like, because I had recently watched the Studio 54 documentary on Amazon, I think, or Netflix, and it reminded me so much of the church. Not just from like the, the music's very different. It was more like, what it did for people. It provided this space for people that kind of felt like they were outcasts, people that had a hard time fitting in their daily lives, and that's really what Studio 54 did, mainly for like the gay community and the artistic community in New York in the 70s. It's exactly what it provided for the goth community here in Dallas for, like I said, almost 30 years, and it was kind of at that point where I was like, well, goddamn, if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it, and I'm going to be upset about the story that they tell, because you could go a bajillion different ways, but to me, the most important part of the story was that phenomena of that community that it created here in Dallas. And there certainly was like a big music part of it, and we talked about that in the film as well.
Right.
And that was important, that was significant, but I felt like it was also really important to talk about that other aspect as well. So we went to Don, the owner of the club, and basically begged him to let us tell his story, because it kind of is his story in a way. And I kind of didn't know where to start, so I just the first thing I did was I contacted Joe, and I was like, Joe, I understand that you probably know a lot of this backstory. Let's do that. And we started interviewing. We started with Joe, and then we kind of spidered out from there. And it was 2 years of work, 2.5 years before we were done.
It was a lot.
Yeah, and eventually Joe came on as the composer for the film as well.
Oh yeah.
So, which was another, odyssey, I think, trying to put, there's 100 or so music drops in the film, and most of the tracks are only about 30 seconds, which is normal for a documentary.
It originally started that there was going to be 11 music cues, and then it went to 36, and then it went to 64, and then it ended up at like 115 for the music cues.
Yeah. Well, so, he just kept saying like he was like, just let me do it. Like, I just want to do it. Yeah, I was like, Joe, this is so much work, man. You have no idea. And you're like, I want to do it. So he did. And
it was a labor of love, man. It's like,
totally,
that's,
totally.
100%.
So in doing all that, Joe, what was your, what'd your process look like? How'd you decide what to put where, and, that sort of thing?
Timothy and I would talk a lot on the phone about, the vibe of the different scenes. And I would, I was used to scoring short films where it's like, I have 3 scenes, then I score the whole scene like a, if it's 10 minutes long, there's probably 3 or 4 pieces that I wrote for that. So I would write these long extended out songs, like full songs that kind of flowed and ebbed and flowed and moved with the whatever was going on the screen. But then Timothy would call me and be like, hey, so can you cut that into 3 parts? And I would change it into 3 different parts for different sections of a song. And then it got to where we just started like bouncing off back and forth about the mood of this one. Can we do it like this? Can we make it a little like this? And I wrote a disco song. I've never made disco in my life. Like disco. I made some funky, weird, I don't even know what kind of dance music it was. I did rave techno for this thing. A lot of industrial. I even did like some typo negative kind of goth tracks for it.
Right.
And then I did like a kind of Baroque piece for a scene during the chandelier. I can't really talk about everything that's in it so people can go see it, but that scene, I did so many different parts. And it was, the process was, he would send me a rough cut of the film and I would score the whole thing. I would score all the different parts. And then he would edit it. We'd edit more edits of the film, would come back to me, and I would change up things. And he would send me a list of notes. I had a pretty decent sized list of notes of things to change and things to like a different vibe or atmosphere or feeling that he thought should go in a certain area. And I would do it. And I would just, it's weird making 30-second pieces instead of like 5-minute songs. And having to convey all that
strange,
emotion,
right? Because it's still gotta have a flow,
Yeah, you have to have a flow with it. It has to follow the scene, but you also have to put all that emotion or all the feelings behind it into like a 30-second piece.
Right.
And that was the biggest challenge for me, but I nailed it. I think I loved it. I loved how it came out.
Yeah, no, it's so cool, and because it spans so many decades. Like the importance of the sound and the genre, and the what did it sound like to step into the church in 1994 or 1998. Those are two completely different sounds. Like there's different tracks that were being played, right? Just the feeling of walking into the club was different between those years. In addition to like talking about Dallas in the 1980s and the Start Club, which was another infamous club here in DFW. All that had different sound, and Joe, really killed it with just nailing it. I mean, it helps that he's just a big fucking music nerd.
Yes.
But he's also extremely talented, and it's one thing to like understand the sound of that. It's quite another thing to like transmute that and be able to create something new that's not just a carbon copy of Depeche Mode or a carbon copy of Nine Inch Nails, for example, right? Because these are all original pieces. They're not sampled. They're not covers.
And I couldn't use samples in this. That's the thing. I was reading up on all the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of what you can and can't do making music for film. And you can't use other people's samples. You can't use all that. So I mean,
you can if you pay for it, but we didn't have that kind of cash.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if the funding's available, yeah. But this was definitely, like I said, a labor of love, and definitely crowdsourced some of it, and a lot of it just out of our own, love and pockets. So
I have to tell you, my favorite track still is the Lizard. So on Thursday and Friday nights, and Saturday, and sometimes on Thursday, mostly Friday and Saturday. It was a rave club. It was techno, and it was known for the most part as the Lizard Lounge, and then Sunday nights were the church.
Right.
Goth night. And we had a section where, I really like these kind of music video style montages to pull us from one subject to the next. So we did one for like prime era Lizard Lounge, and really fast paced, lots of, I don't even know what the BPM was. It was probably like 150, 160 something. It was
up. It might not have been that fast. I think it was like 140, maybe 130.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it was quick, but lots of fast cuts. And the soundbite that happens directly before that song is Paul Oakenfold, which you may know him. He's a world famous techno artist. He says in his British accent, Dallas was really known for pioneering club culture, and then the music hits and starts. And it was a nice lead in. It had a good downbeat, and I heard a version of the song that was all instrumental. And then when I finally got the final version from Joe, I synced it and I laid it in there. And he goes, "Really known for pioneering club culture, bump it up, club culture," and he uses it as a sample and a downbeat. And I was like, "Joe, you motherfucker! Like that's so cool."
That's really very cool.
Yeah, and you can hear that on Spotify. We included that one as one of the soundtracks. It's also on YouTube. You can go listen to it there as well. But for some reason it just cracks me up. It's also a banger of a track, so I
thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it's actually my kid's favorite track.
Oh, really?
As well. Yeah, he goes, "Dad, I played the club culture one." I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Kim says, "Oops, Joe did it again."
That's funny. So yeah, I mean, brilliant. So if you don't know it already, the soundtrack is on Spotify. It's on YouTube. You can watch it all there with ads and
whatnot,
and I believe it's also on Pandora. So you should go check it out. It's amazing. Yeah.
So in the credits, I noticed. So, was this actually like fully funded by an Indiegogo? Is that what happened?
It was. Yep.
So tell me about that.
Yeah.
Like, how long did the goal take to, how long did it take to raise enough money and all that? How was the response to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we only did 30 days, maybe. We might have done 60. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, I set the bar really high. I was asking for like 100,000. And, the thing is with the documentary, it's a sliding scale. If you're scrappy, if you're a good scrappy indie filmmaker, you can work with what you got, Yeah. I mean, we probably would have found a way to make this with $1,000 if that's all we could have raised. I wanted 100,000. We could have done some incredible things with that. Right. But we ended up raising like 34,000.
Hell yeah!
And with that, I think the things that we did get for the documentary that other documentaries don't have, like the artist who did the actual like animations.
Yeah.
I think that kind of paid for itself in a way, like as far as like taking it up another notch. I think we got more out of that money than I think anybody else probably would have.
Yeah, I mean, we worked for free a lot, man. I mean, this was my full-time second job for 2 years, and I just being honest, like I had health problems. Like I was like losing weight and not sleeping enough and like super stressed. And this happens every time I make a film. So this isn't like, I'm not moaning, right? It's just something that happens when you immerse yourself in, a monument of a art piece, and it probably happened to Joe too. He lost a lot of sleep on that music.
There were several 24-hour days writing the music where I'm not getting that 30-second spot exactly to fit where I want it to fit, and I'm having to change things, and I'm like, I wish I could edit the video to the song instead of the song to the video. But it was there were many nights, and then some nights I would bust out like 4 pieces at once. And,
you never know, right? You just get
when the inspiration
sometimes
it happened. It was really cool. I enjoyed doing it. I said at the end of it, I'll never do another documentary again, just because it was so hard to get all the pieces in there.
I said the same thing.
I kind of miss it.
Yeah, I mean, you get so connected. I mean, many of these people are actually our friends, right? I mean, I went to the church for the first time in 2010. So I didn't go there every Sunday like Joe did, but I went as often as I could. And, those people became my, part of my community, right? I became part of the community. So that's, I mean, that's, there's the money aspect of like, okay, we've got to do a lot with little, because I don't believe in making a shit product. But then there's the other part of like, I just felt like this was really important, like for the community, but also I kind of feel like this is a movie for our times, right? We're living in I wouldn't have said this a year ago. I did a lot of interviews on podcasts a year ago before the film came out, when we were kind of like promoting initial screenings. But the world has changed a lot, and I'm kind of feeling like we're in the same boat we were in the early 90s, where there's a lot of people that don't feel comfortable in their daily lives. And it's really important that spaces like the church exist, right? And it's important that we tell those stories, and people realize why it matters. And and that, I think that drove a lot of us, myself, Austin, Joe, because we had this sense of urgency of like feeling like this, we're doing more than documenting local history. We're telling an important story that people need to hear.
For sure.
And not only that they need to hear, but I think that that resonates with them as well, that they need to hear and see how things can overcome, or see how things can come together. And I mean, there's a lot of coming together and a lot of falling apart, but a lot of coming together as well in the film. And really, some people need that. Some people need that extra. I don't know the right word that I'm looking for, but I'm picturing somebody in my mind. I'm very visual when I'm thinking or trying to say something. I see somebody sitting there who's at their wit's end with the world and their family and everything, and then they see that they're not alone in that they're not alone in feeling those things, and that they're, Dallas was lucky enough to have, or is lucky enough to have, a community like this. Even though it's changed a bit since the documentaries come out, it's still, having this as a almost a refuge, or like a sanctuary. I guess, well, yeah, dark sanctuary. Right. Where do we come up with that? But yeah, it's like it's like that, I think that gives hope to people who didn't have it. If they get a chance to see this, that would be something that could possibly help them overcome.
I absolutely can't agree more with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really important. And, there is, that sounds really big and heavy, and it is in a way, but there's a lot of, if you watch the film, there's a lot of joy. There's a lot of really funny shit that happened. I actually have some stuff that I couldn't fit into the documentary that was so funny I just didn't know where to put it. That stories that Joe and other people told me. But then there's also just like the really badass music history that's a part of the Dallas scene, but also specifically the church. Like the biggest names in goth rock, in gothic industrial, and really even just like techno and rave and came to 2424 Swiss Avenue, and not just because they were booked there, but because they were like, this is an incredible space, and they came back over and over and over again. People like Tiesto, Paul Oakenfold, Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy, multiple times. And then like, I literally can't like spit it all out right now because it would take forever, but you name me a goth band, someone that, comes to mind that fits into that kind of dark electronica, they've been to the church.
Sure.
And if you catch them after a show, any one of them will be like, oh shit, the church, I love that place. So it's a place they remember too. And that's really cool.
That was definitely evident in the that like kind of extended interview section with like Voltaire.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably been to Voltaire's probably been to the church more than he has anywhere else.
That was his home away from home.
Totally.
He was there a lot. At least once a year, if not twice, sometimes. Yeah. But we had bands like God Module. They played there half a dozen times, if not more. Kevin Key's been there probably 4 or 5 times. Oh man, just so many. Even like oh my gosh, from Yaz, and he used to be in Depeche Mode. Why can't I think of his name right now? He's like synth. Oh, Vince Clarke. Even Vince Clarke has played at the church, like, which is just beyond legendary. That's just amazing. And yeah.
So
for sure. Go ahead.
How hard was it to gather like all the footage and the images?
That was probably the hardest part. I had this, and I don't know if I can't remember if I told you, Joe, because Joe's the first guy that we interviewed. But I was telling people, I was like, we'll be done in 6 months. Like I think we started in probably around about now, maybe May or June of 2021. And I was like, we'll be done by Christmas. This will be great. And I've made other documentaries, that took less than that. And so I was,
you did tell me that one.
Did I? Yeah. Well, I was sorely misguided. By Christmas, we had barely gotten all the interviews that we needed. And we kept doing interviews for another 4 or 5 months, I think.
You didn't get to everybody either. Like there was a lot of people that we needed to get interviewed.
Yeah, we just couldn't. We just ran out of time. And that's typical of documentaries. Like it's not like a narrative film where you just say, okay, like we shot it all, I'm going to edit it, and I can put a solid 3-month window on it. It'll be done. Not a big deal. Right. At some point you just have to say like, okay, this is going to be what it is, it's as good as I can possibly make it, and no amount of, refilming or filming more, it might change it a little bit, but I don't know, you just have to like make a choice, and it's pretty difficult. But, the even when we were finished with that first bulk of interviews in the first 6 months, you just keep meeting people, and they keep telling you stories, and you find out things you didn't know before, and you find people with secret stashes of video or secret stashes of like physical photographs, right? And suddenly that leads you down another rabbit trail, and they say, hey, you need to talk to this one guy. He's got a shoebox full of Polaroids. And you're like, oh, and you start to feel like you're kind of like on a treasure hunt, right? And honestly, it's my favorite part, but it's the most tedious. You feel kind of like Indiana Jones.
Kind of like the song that never ends. You're going to keep.
Yeah. But, like it pays off. Like, for example, one of the latter interviews that we did, that someone that just for whatever reason was not on my radar yet, was big name DJ locally, and now I think voice of the Dallas Stars, is that right? Jeff K. Yeah, so Jeff K, he kind of went from radio into sports, and he's a big deal. And I was told by somebody, hey, you should talk to Jeff K. And so I was like, oh man, like I've already filled up almost a terabyte of memory, and I'm so tired, but let's do it. Let's go talk to Jeff K.
Right.
And not only did he give me this amazing interview, but afterwards he's like, Timothy, come over here. He opens up this shoebox, and it's full of 35 millimeter photographs. And he starts searching through them and kind of throwing some to the side. And then he goes, oh yeah, here we go. And he lays out a handful of stuff from Swiss Avenue, mostly between the years of 1985 and 1988. And 3 or 4 of those are of Clan of Zymox playing 2424 Swiss in 1988. And so at the time, they're babies. Like if you look at, we include those in the film, but they look, I mean, they might be 18, 19. I don't know. They're so young. And the club wasn't even the church at that point. It was a club called Empire, which, was mostly a concert venue. But it brought in a lot of those like darkly inclined, bands.
That was the first club in Dallas I'd ever been to.
What, and we tell that whole beautiful story in the film.
Sorry.
No, yeah, we actually have a whole animated sequence of Baby Joe going to.
I love those animated sequences; they're so cool.
Yeah, going to Empire. But that was incredible. Like I felt like I struck gold. I mean, not only is it this extremely relevant band who's contributed so much to like what we know as like goth music, but it might be the earliest photograph of 2424 Swiss as a music venue. It'd been around for 100 years. In the 70s, it was a dinner theater, but they weren't really playing music there. It was like show tune type stuff. So Empire was really the place where it started to kind of become the first phase, I would say, of the church. In finding that photograph, I was so grateful that I like decided to stick through it a little bit longer, because sometimes you find that that little pot of gold, and it's amazing. You just, and it's so valuable to make those discoveries, and it elevates everything. And freaking Clan of Zymox, I've seen them twice here in Dallas in the last like year, and it's so funny to see them now, bunch of old dudes, and then these little babies in 1988 playing Dallas at Swiss Avenue.
Incredible. They were the first band I ever bought a cassette from. Like the first album I ever purchased with my own money was the original Clan of Zymox when it came out.
No way.
That's cool.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. Hell yeah. I think they're probably definitely one of the first, like dark wave bands I ever listened to. Absolutely.
So for the most part, were people receptive to doing interviews, or did you get like some pushback?
We got pushback. Yeah, for sure. And I would say for the most part, though, people were ecstatic to be asked.
Mhm.
I mean, people love talking about themselves, but they love talking about the church because everyone has these remarkable stories. I mean, I have remarkable stories there. It was a place where magic happened. And so I mean, and it affected people's lives so deeply. Just that community aspect that I was talking about.
I mean, I like talking about myself a lot. So yeah.
Joe, for example, was so excited. He gave me about 9 hours of interviews. We had to split it up into 2 days. It was, and before that, we had probably talked for about 12 hours over Zoom.
Yep.
And so, it was.
Forgot about all the Zooms, man.
Yeah, that's like a hazy nightmare right there. But I mean, people are just really enthusiastic, and it's and I'm not pushy as a documentarian. If you tell me you don't want to be interviewed, I don't beg. Right. Because I want you to I need you to be emotional. I need you to be excited. And if you're not feeling it, that's fine. Not right. A big deal. I would say we brought some people out of their box. There's some people that were very shy that were willing to do it. And
there were some interviews that I was totally like blown away that you actually got them to talk on camera. So
right. Well, it took some hanging out and some just talking, and I made a lot of friends in this too. I would say there's kind of an old guard of the church that I hadn't really mingled with before this film, and so a lot of those people are also my friends now. It's you kind of get connected to the people that were there when you first arrived. So if you were hot in the scene in 2010 to 2013, those were the people that were kind of in my sphere. But I mean, we're talking literally thousands of people that have come through that building, generations, epochs of people.
People's kids, they brought their kids when they just turned 18, and now, like 20 or 30 years old, I'm still meeting people's kids that hey, my dad used to come here. Who's your dad? Sandy. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, so funny. And it's funny. There's a whole generation of mostly kind of Gen Z kids that are just coming into the church. They've just turned 21, and we talked to them, and they're like, "What's this thing that you're doing?" And we're like, "Well, we made a documentary about the church." They say, "Oh, that's interesting, cool." And then they watch the trailer, and they're like, "Wait, there was another place before this?" Because it is currently at It'll Do Club in Dallas, and it's thriving there. But there's this whole new generation that doesn't even realize this legacy. This whole secret history, and that's always amazing to me. I'm like, go watch the movie; it's going to blow your fucking mind.
Absolutely.
The old club was so massive compared to the new spot, and it had so many nooks and crannies and places for people to just kind of like hide out and do their own thing, and wherever you wanted to be in the club you could be. We had a mezzanine around the top, overlooking the dance floor, the main room. There were some secret little corridors you can go back into. There was the dressing room, which sometimes wasn't used as the dressing room, but kind of a hangout for VIPs. There was a VIP section. Then you had the video bar that had a DJ booth and a bar. And,
totally separate space.
Yeah, separate space. And then you had two patios. You had the downstairs patio and then an upstairs like rooftop deck. And that had a bar and DJ booth up there. And when that was running, I mean, that was what, 4 or 5 rooms and more to like.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the closets that if you knew how to get into them, you could sneak away and do things.
And behind the DJ booth got used a lot by some people, not me, but never.
Well, I have a question for you, Joe. When you in the documentary, when you the first time you walked back into the empty building, what sort of thoughts were the first thing that went through your head?
The first thing that went through my head was I had never seen it like just gutted, nothing on the walls, nothing on the floors. I was like, in all honesty, I was like, I want to shoot my music video here. Wait, I want to do a club night here. I want to do it just like totally not the church, just some like hard post-apocalyptic industrial night, like a rave, but like an industrial just wasteland in a box, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much character the space still had even after it had been gutted.
Without the carpeting, without the wallpaper, without anything. I mean, there were no walls, there were no stairs.
Right.
And I loved it. I thought, man, I could still open a club here. And what's funny, Don said the same thing to me later. Like, he's like, man, I could totally open a club. I would love to open a night here. We just get some porta potties and a generator.
Right, grind down some of the rebar that's sticking up.
I'm down. Listen, if we can.
The space is still there. They keep saying they're going to demolish it, but it hasn't happened.
I heard some rumors about that, but I'm not going to spread it online.
Yeah, that's
yeah. It keeps changing. There's a big announcement that they were going to knock it down, and then we all got very emotional, and then it never happened. So who knows?
Like taking us on roller coaster rides.
Yeah, I mean, what they're not going to do is renovate it. Like it's beyond saving in that respect. Well,
the sad part was that during the COVID times, there was a bad rainstorm, and then it froze, and then there was a
pipe burst.
Yeah, a pipe burst inside. And everything, all the water was coming out of the club, but it looked like the club was crying because it was like ice tears coming out of the walls and the windows. And it was I need to find that picture. There's pictures of it somewhere online.
I haven't seen that. That's interesting.
It's sad. I mean, it's sad but this is when it still had carpeting and stairs, a second floor, the walls and everything in there. So all that stuff got ruined. We do have a warehouse that has a lot of things from there that did not get damaged or ruined that we were able to take out before we left.
Chandelier was saved.
That was actually something I was gonna ask. I'm like, okay, so you saved the chandelier and then the club closed. So where is it?
Yeah, it was put in storage for a long time, and then a super fan bought it.
Did he? Did he get it?
He did get it. Awesome. Yeah. I won't say.
I know,
because he probably wants to keep his privacy, but someone bought it, and so if you in the film when we pan up to the ceiling, you're going to see all these square ornate tiles, and they're gold and black. A lot of those were saved. They were pulled down, when they were gutting after the big ice, freezing. The people that owned the place had a crew in there, and they were just chunking them out. And I forget who it was. I think it might have been I don't know. I forget. Someone was going by and they saw it, and they said, "For the love of God, stop!" And they were able to pause things long enough to get a truck over and start saving a lot of those tiles. And so I'm not sure how many is saved, but I actually own one. Now he owns probably a few. Austin, the co-producer, has some. There's several more. People have paid a lot of money for these things.
I have one, but I want more.
yeah. I mean, there's a few more, maybe.
I have about a foot long piece, or maybe like almost 2 feet long piece of the wallpaper. But the way the way that it was cut, it cut the designs in half, so you don't have a full design on it. It had some ornate dragons and stuff on it that I wish I had another piece of. So always looking for that.
Yeah. We actually have like a close up of that wallpaper at the end of the film. I mean, and people like, I obviously I'm a writer, and so I like to draw out metaphors, but the church metaphors just don't end in it's part of the railing there. The scepter of righteousness there.
That's really cool.
But people like, these are relics. Like these are relics. People, they want them. They feel blessed to have them. It kind of gives you that magical tingly feeling of like you got a little bit of the power of the church with you. And so like that's real, and people like are kind of desperate for, just a little piece that reminds them of the amazing.
I have people asking me for things from the club that I have, like, I'll pay you this for it. And I'm like, man, that sounds really good, but if I get rid of it, that's the last of it. That's the last one. Nobody's gonna have it again.
You know, I mean, it's kind
Honestly,
of
that's kind of shitty that people would ask you that, dude. That's like, yeah, no, that's not cool.
But I understand where they're coming from, because it
Mhm.
it meant a lot to a lot of people too. Not just as much as it meant to me.
Right.
I mean, it was my life for. I mean, literally, I spent half my life in that building, working there for 22 years, almost 23
Mhm.
years, working in that building. Every week I was there. Like I called out once for a funeral, once for my wedding, and then like I think those were the only days that I cut out. Maybe that's it for the church. I never called out
Mhm.
on any of those nights except 2 or 3 times. That's it. I spent most of my life in that building. I worked there also Friday and Saturday nights, doing their visuals, like the video, like VJing for the walls, while big name DJs were playing on stage. So I was in there all week long, and so it hit hard. It's
Yeah.
like it's a family member. It's like a funeral for a family member
Mhm.
when it went away, and a lot of people felt the same way I did, even though they just were there to party all the time. It was
Right.
I had like an emotional attachment to that building, and I think a lot of people did too. So I get it. I get it. It does kind of suck that they want my stuff, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just goes to show you how important it was and
sure.
is to people. I mean, it's such a big deal that like I've got a tile and I'm not going to give it to anybody. Like you could offer me a lot of money and I'll probably say like, but then I won't have it anymore. It's this physical. It's like a relic. It's like a holy relic almost.
I have a lot of pieces from that place.
Yeah.
So, Timothy, how'd you get into making film?
I've always wanted to. I mean, I don't want to say always. There's a point in my life when I wanted to be a fireman, like every 5-year-old, right? But I would say around the age of 10, maybe. My mom showed me a copy of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, the German expressionist film, and it was actually a part of. And I've still got the DVDs, but it was a part of a 3-set. It also included The Golem and Nosferatu, and also it was a 4-pack. It also had The Phantom of the Opera. But the two that I gravitated to were Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and there was something magical about it. It wasn't Disney. It was it was weird. It scared me. It made me feel weird and unsettled. And it was beautiful, right? Like I mean, even those shitty DVD scans, I've seen like breathtaking scans of both of those films since then when they've gone back to the negative and done 4K upres. But even these shit, and maybe that's even like spookier. It was kind of even spookier, these like low quality copies. But basically from that moment on, I was like, I want to do that. And it got me into reading like Gothic literature, so I read Dracula and I read Frankenstein. I read, eventually actually my uncle, he moved off to Chicago to like pursue a career in music, and he gifted me his entire Vampire Chronicles set.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And I'm telling you, man, that changed my fucking life.
I love Anne Rice's stuff.
Just Anne Rice, like just, I mean, everything I do is like kind of just a weird reflection of that first time I absorbed Interview with the Vampire and Queen of the Damned and The Vampire Lestat, and I'm still kind of chasing that genre. And I've always wanted to do mostly horror, and I have done some horror films. I've done a lot of horror short films, one feature. But unfortunately horror doesn't pay.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, maybe
that's my favorite genre. Doesn't mean it's everyone else's.
Yeah, but you do low budget stuff, and I've gotten to the point where it kind of pays for itself, but doesn't make me money. So my day job has always been in documentary stuff because people will hire you for that sort of thing, and I never thought I would make a documentary, if I'm being honest. If it wasn't something you were giving me a paycheck for. But I had the skills and I had the know-how, and then the opportunity arose and I was like, well, yeah, let's do it. But if I still have this weird conception of myself as like a narrative horror filmmaker, even though I've actually made like probably 10 times as many documentary related stuff, but I've got a shit ton of folk horror scripts that I just need to somehow get enough money to make them, I'm also a big fan of folk horror. Folk horror is my jam, what's the quintessential Wicker Man, something.
Oh, nice.
I just watched Innisman last night, which is another folk horror film set in Cornwall. So it's a Cornish folk horror film. It's weird as shit.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, it's good. It's ENYS men.
Would you say it's kind of corny?
It's a little corny. It's Cornish. It's Cornish. Goddamn. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, that's kind of my journey. I went to film school, and but most of my experience has been by doing it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Joe, has being a DJ changed a lot since when you first started?
Oh God, yes, big time.
This motherfucker started on records. Okay, it's changed
in major ways. Like, so I started in 1984. Okay, I started mixing in 1984 on two turntables that we got at a thrift store for like $15 because the cables were cut off and they didn't have needles. So my dad knew how to like rewire stuff. Of course, I learned now, but he rewired them so that they had all the cables I needed. And we went to Radio Shack, rest in peace. We went to Radio Shack and got needles for the turntables. He bought me a mixer, but it wasn't a DJ mixer. So I really had to work with it to learn, but I learned on turntables. And, I would save up my allowance every week and or lunch money if I didn't make my allowance. I would go to the record store. I would just buy like a milk and a cookie every day at school and go home and eat everything in the house. But
typical skinny goth kid diet.
Oh yeah, I was back then. Yeah, definitely. and so I was always a notch underweight is what the doctor said to Mom. But like I would take that lunch money at the end of the week, and I'd go to Record Bar or Turtles or whatever record store was near me and buy a 12-inch single and then learn to beat match that into the next song. And I did that for years. And I accumulated a huge vinyl collection. And then everything went to CDs in the late 80s. And I started selling all my cassettes and vinyl even, sadly, and bought CDs. But I could only mix on vinyl. So I got rid of a lot of the fluff stuff and just kept my like hardcore records that I like to mix. Got a couple of gigs doing DJing raves on vinyl, all vinyl. And then somebody came in to a club with a CDJ set. And I'm like, wow, you can mix with CDs? That's cool. It was Jeff K. It was Jeff K had the first CD set, CDJ set that I said. I don't even remember what brand it was. And they sat on top. The CDs, you pop the lids down on it, and it just hovered over the CD. It spun over a laser. It was the coolest thing, but it had pitch control and all this stuff. So it went from that. And I'm just talking the technical stuff first, but like also the heads behind it, the mindset of it. So I would get hired because I had 10,000 CDs. I don't know how many thousands of pieces of vinyl.
10,000. And
10,000. I still have like in this room alone, I probably have 8,000 or 9,000 CDs here.
Holy cow! And
I have a closet of vinyl. So, but I sold a lot of vinyl and gave a lot of away in like a really weird moment in my life. But and then it went digital in like 2007. I got a laptop and converted everything to MP3s and just started MP3s and waves and started mixing digitally. And now I just load a flash drive with music on it and take it to a club and I pop it in, plug my headphones in. And now I can DJ anywhere if they have the same product. So it's changed a lot. Of course, the mentality has changed a lot too, because you used to get hired because you had an insane collection. You used to have, if you had a major collection of everything in all kinds of genres, it was easier for you to get a gig than some kid who had like 5 CDs to his name.
Right.
And now everybody has access to Tidal and even YouTube Music and Amazon, all the different musics and Apple Music, all that. people have access to that. They could just download stuff, and people, of course, pirated stuff and downloaded stuff for free. I'm still like one of the few DJs that pays for almost everything he plays. Like almost every piece of music I played, if it's not paid for by me, it's downloaded from a record label that sends me the MP3 to play. The label wants me to play their stuff. They'll send me all these promos. So, but it's weird because now it's like everybody's a DJ because everybody can do it. Everybody can grab a laptop or a stick, and load up some things, take it to a place and play their favorite 5 songs or 10 songs in an hour.
Yeah, but you obviously know this, but there's so much more to being a DJ, right? I mean, beyond the the collection, the technical skills of beat matching, but it's also reading a room. It's also understanding how to take people on a journey, and that's what I think we're missing in a lot of like this generation of DJs.
The fly by night guys too. They don't know.
They're concentrated on the effects. They want to get all the stutters and all the all the little warps and the frequency changes, but they're not thinking about the journey that they're sending you on. They're playing hit after hit after hit after hit, and and you can't keep up because you're exhausted.
And they're opening for a headliner and they've already played all the bangers. All the big hits and stuff. When I DJ somewhere, I usually DJ the whole night. It's kind of in my contract that when I'm there, I don't want an opening DJ, I don't want a closing DJ, because I want to take the whole crowd on a journey.
And that's that could be 8 hours, man. 6 to 8 hours.
And I've done that. Yeah, the church used to be 7 hours long. It was 9 to 4. So I would play from 9 a.m. to 4 a.m. And at 4:15, Big John or somebody is telling me, cut it, man, come on. And I'm like, they're still pumped. These people are still pumped.
Cool. And it takes serious skills to create an epic experience like that, and I mean I've met some kind of like up and coming DJs, and I don't want to I'm not shitting on anybody,
no, for sure,
but they do 45 minute sets, and that's great, and maybe they're just learning, but that's kind of the norm now, and or you have DJ nights where they have 4 people that switch off, right? You rarely, and your night just kind of goes like this, it's like there's no plateaus, there's no dips, there's no builds, it's just kind of like, and it's hard to get in the zone, it's hard to get lost.
My whole idea for doing a night is to create the atmosphere and soundtrack for the night. There's people that are going through all kinds of different emotions that night, and I want a certain song somewhere to resonate with them for that moment that they're going through something, where 20 years from now they're going to be like, God damn, Joe was playing this one song and I got dumped, or this one song came on and I met the girl of my dreams, or like this awesome, I met a cool guy, or I met a cool girl, whatever. All this stuff. Something rad happened, and I created the soundtrack to that moment for them. And
I mean, it solidifies. I mean, there's psychology there.
Oh, dude, I always remember the first time I walked into
concretes it into your brain.
Oh yeah, it's cemented in there, man. Like I know the first song and I talked about it in the film, so I won't mention it, but I still remember the first song that played when I walked into Empire in 1988 when I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm. You should mention it because it's literally the same song that I heard whenever I walked into the church 30 years later.
It was Lucretia, My Reflection by the Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah.
Right.
When I walked in, that's what they were playing, and I thought it was the coolest club. Now you'll have to watch the documentary to see the rest of that story, but but that is stuck in my head. I will always remember that moment.
Mm-hmm. And it colors your experience. It's like you can't hear that song without thinking about the first time you entered those doors, and same here, I mean, maybe they were just playing that song a lot. I don't know, but I'm telling you, the first time I went to the church, they were playing Lucretia, and I mean, I already was familiar with the bands. It wasn't like the first time I heard it, but it was like the first time I heard it in a club. Right. And I was like, there's a place that plays Sisters of Mercy. Like,
it's a different thing. You're hearing it over a big PA system instead of your car speakers,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you walk into a place, and not only that, but then it also shows you that, again, back to the original thing I had said earlier about, wow, there's somebody who knows this song too. I thought I was the only person on the planet who liked this song, no matter what it is,
There's someone like me,
Yeah, exactly. There's somebody out there like me. So, and that I think that really got a lot of the community together too. I mean, this crew, the church crew, they used to do things like, the church day out, church family day out. And everybody'd go to Six Flags together. There'd be a whole goth contingent of the church goers at Six Flags, all in black, of course, probably getting in trouble, probably causing trouble or something, or just enjoying themselves anyway. But they would go to there, they would go to other places, and there were field trips. Don took the whole crowd. That went weird. Sorry, Don took us all one night to a Depeche Mode concert. Like,
oh, cool.
He had everybody meet up at the club at 7 or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
Paid for it. Like,
paid for it.
Brought everybody along.
Brought everybody tickets.
Crazy.
Got a tour bus, dragged us all to Reunion Arena, and we all got to watch Depeche Mode together as a family. Like,
that's cool.
What clubs do that? What? I don't know.
They don't, man. I mean, that's why we made the documentary, because clubs don't do that. They steal your money. They throw you out when you're being an asshole. They get you drunk and they ruin your life. But not the church. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't some people that probably partied too hard, but generally speaking, the mentality was what Joe was saying, and that's noteworthy.
I love it.
Absolutely. So, Joe, obviously, you moved across the country. Have you found a good scene where you're at now?
Yeah, there's a decent scene here. I moved to, I'm in the desert. I'm in the high desert above LA, so I'm about an hour and 30 minutes from Hollywood north, and there's not a lot up here, especially where I'm at. It's desert. It's real desert. We
visited him. It's Mad Max, man.
It's definitely Mad Max up here. I call it my desert compound. I mean, it's a little neighborhood, but we're not technically in the town. We have an address that's the next town over, but there's a club. Actually, it's not a club. It's a brewery in Palmdale. So it's about 35 minutes away from where I live. And it's got there's a DJ there that promotes a lot, and he brings some cool shows, a lot of punk shows, but he started doing goth nights and stuff too. And I've been going and hanging out whenever there's like Aesthetic Perfection played there. It was really good. It's an awesome show. Bunch of my friends, they come up from LA to these shows too, so it's not like too far for people to go. It's like, you're from Maine, so I don't know how far things are in Maine, but like in Dallas, the equivalent of me going to LA for a show would be me in Dallas going to Waco to see a show. So it's like an hour and a half away from everything. So, but there's a cool scene here. I'm not DJing a lot. I DJ every once in a while. I say that, and I've got a couple of gigs coming up. I'm DJing the Leather Strip show coming up in LA, which is pretty
cool.
Yeah.
Much love to Klaus. We love Klaus here.
Klaus is a friend of mine. I love Klaus. He's a really good friend of mine. He's played at my club. He played a birthday party for me at the church. And
I love that.
it was so rad. We actually did a benefit for him also for when Kurt was sick. We raised, I don't remember, I think like $1,500. It wasn't as much as I would like to, but we raised money for him anyway to help out.
I love that.
And so, so Leather Strip was a big part of the church for me. He's played there 2 or 3 times. And we did the tribute for the tribute night dedication. I actually did a cover. My band did a cover of No Rest for the Wicked. And we played it live. And it was so rad. So I'll be DJing there. That's with a group called LA Industrial. They're one of there's several promotional companies, groups in LA, and LA Industrial is the one that I've worked with the most so far. I've also DJ'd at Bar Sinister like 4 times.
Nice. Bar
Sinister. And then there's a club called Noctis that I did one night there. That was fun. It was a very goth place at a place called Mal's Bar. And they had the movie Haxan, old, like a 20s movie. Is it the 20s or before that?
Yeah, it was the 20s roughly. Yeah, it was not a silent film. It was a really early talkie, but but yeah, weird movie.
They played that up on the screens while
so cool.
I
so
watch the movie more
side note on Hoxton, the first time my friends ever did mushrooms, I showed them Hoxton. Just to be mean.
I love that.
They were like, I was like, it was starting to hit them. I was like, hey, I've got a film for you. Let's watch this. They were so mad. Anyway.
Wow.
So sorry.
But yeah, the Mal's Bar. That was at Mal's Bar in downtown LA. So they have a really good scene. It's really spread out. It's really spread out. Then you have Das Bunker. I went to a pig show. Unicode Machine, another Dallas friend of mine, played that show, and it was really cool. It was cool. I miss it. It made me miss the church a lot. It's just a bigger venue, and it had a lot of people running around. A lot of the shows that I've gone to out here are a lot smaller than church in Dallas, and so it's kind of like,
I mean, there's very few clubs that are bigger or ever have been bigger.
Every time I play
one
Dallas,
or two, but they're like they're monthly nights. They're not like something you can go to every day of the week.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And when I play the church every other month or so, when I fly back out to Dallas, there's like 600 to 800 people easy every time I'm there. And I play here and
every week. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, there's a new generation of goths that are coming up, and you could probably thank like Instagram and TikTok for that. But there's these, and they want a space, right? And they're hungry for it, and there's I go there and there's just people I've never seen before. I'm like, how old are you, child? But yeah, I'm so glad you're here. It's amazing, Well, and so you forgot to mention though that you're on Twitch like 5 days a week at least.
Oh yeah.
So it's not that you don't DJ anymore. You're DJing all the time.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't stopped. I DJ'd a really cool thing the other week, right before. This was a crazy rock and roll weekend. I DJ'd on a Saturday night at V Neal. She did the horror makeup for like the Lost Boys and.
Oh, you were at her Vampire Weekend?
Yeah, I did her. I DJ'd her Vampire Ball.
Sweet. My friends, Ashes Fallen. I think.
I was gonna say, Ashes Fallen are the ones who got me to the gig to do that. So James and is her name Michelle? Yeah. They booked me to be the DJ for the night there. So that was an experience, man. That was a really eye-opening and amazing experience. I definitely want to do more things with the vampire community in LA, because that was a pretty cool crowd. And meeting V Neal too, like that's legendary. It's amazing. So
legend, absolutely.
And then I flew out the next morning to go to Dallas to DJ at the church. So like it was insane and intense, and it was a great weekend. And I love that I can still go back to Dallas and people still want to see me, want to come out and dance to what I'm playing. And I get a lot of love from my crowd out in Dallas. So cheers to everybody that still goes to the new church, and a lot of new people who started coming out. They never heard of me before, but now they're on my Twitch, watching my Twitch channel, and most of them coming out to the club every time I'm there. So I really truly appreciate that. It means a lot coming from this desert wasteland, going back out there. But it does kind of get a little overwhelming because I'm not used to being around people much anymore, because we're really out here in the nowhere.
It's quiet, man. It's so quiet.
Man, there's 10 cars. That's traffic to me. 10 cars. Like,
I understand.
I'll be like,
you're talking to a Mainer, man.
I live on an island off the coast. I really understand.
Oh wow.
Which can wait? I don't want you to like dox yourself and.
Oh, it's fine. I've said it before. I'm
on
Vinyl Haven Island.
Which one?
Vinyl Haven.
Oh, okay. I have a friend that grew up near Mount Desert Island.
Okay.
So I've always wanted to go to Maine. One of my favorite trips I went on was to Boston, and then I took the train up to Salem and then Newburyport, which are all the spots that inspired H.P. Lovecraft to, like Newburyport is basically Innsmouth, from Shadow of Innsmouth. And Salem is more or less the same place as Arkham, right? And anyway, but I came within like 30 minutes of being in Maine. I was like, I just want to keep on going. I want to see Maine. Like, I know my my best friend is from Maine, and he's like, it's so boring up there. I was like, I don't know, man. I want to go see. I want to go see like that part of the world. It's been occupied for so long.
It's
like
fun.
I just want to get
beautiful.
Man, I want to go get some seafood up there.
I had amazing seafood while I was in Boston. Probably the best that I don't think I've had anything fresher.
My stepdaughter's up in Boston now. That's where she lives now.
Yeah, but that is a uniquely keep it on topic. That's a uniquely kind of gothic part of the country. And it's probably mainly because of, for me, that sensation is from reading a lot of H.P. Lovecraft. But you have like Nathaniel Hawthorne. Which is arguably one of the earliest like gothic authors, right?
Absolutely.
And he talks about Maine, he talks about upstate New York, and he talks about New England, and just paints it as such this like just old, creepy, mysterious place. And some people that are from that part of the world don't feel that way. Every time I visit, I get that kind of that sense that there's like something more going on behind the scenes, layers upon layers upon layers of history in weird hidden things. And, all the hills are haunted by, interstellar monsters,
It's probably not too far from the truth.
Probably not, and the interstellar monsters are the hillbillies that are going to come out. And
I'm from up there too. I'm from the Philly area. Like when I was young, I lived up there for about 5 years, just outside Philadelphia. So a lot of those little small towns outside the big cities.
Yeah. Well, you've got Poe, like that's,
oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. But it feels like the Headless Horseman out there. Like it feels you get that sleepy.
I mean, when like the bar you go to like have a drink was founded in like 1693.
Yeah.
You're like, like there's like something else going on here. I mean, I don't want to veer off into like paranormal stuff, but everything felt haunted to me in that part of the world. So I'm kind of jealous. Honestly, it's like, what do we have? We have cowboys out here in Texas. It's fine. I mean, the church was haunted. So
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, the church was definitely haunted, 100%.
We
put a whole like 6-7 minutes of the film is about the ghosts of the church, the literal ghosts of the church.
So this question's a little bit off the wall. If you guys were an ice cream flavor, what would you be and why?
Joe, you go first. Or I can go first. Mine's going to be boring. It is like coffee and dark chocolate, probably. Just like espresso flavor. Nice and dark and rich. What about you, Joe?
All I can think about is my favorite flavor. I can't think of what I would be.
All right. Well, what's your favorite flavor?
And my favorite flavor of ice cream, if I had to be an ice cream, it would definitely be 2 scoops. It would be a scoop of mint chocolate chip, and then the scoop on top of that would be peanut butter chocolate, because then I'd eat myself and I would just devour myself, and that's it, because that's the best ice cream on the planet.
I think you would be like pistachio, like a little bitter whenever you taste it at first, just a little bitter, but then kind of sweet after you have it in your mouth for a while.
I'm bitter about a lot of things. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, so starting to wind it down here. Where can people follow you and see what you're working on?
Yeah. So darksanctuarythemovie.com. Right now it is streaming on Amazon Prime. And so you can go rent or buy it there. You can also buy a DVD or Blu-ray if you're into physical media, which I am, of course. Yep. You can go to Cleo Rex, CleoRecs.com. Cleopatra Records, the famous goth label, distributed our film, so you can go buy the DVD or Blu-ray from there, or on Amazon. I encourage you to go to Clio Rex if you want to get the DVD and Blu-ray. And then on the 22nd of April, so it depends on when you watch this, it's going to be in like 4 or 5 more platforms. And I don't totally know what those are going to be yet, but it's going to be places like Google Play, Apple TV, probably like Vudu, places like that. More places where you can rent by, and we'll get on Tubi eventually. But what you can do is anytime you want to figure out where the film is streaming, just go to darksanctuarythemovie.com and we'll have all the links there. And then, of course, if you want to follow us, Spectrograph Films, the studio behind Dark Sanctuary, Spectrograph Films on all the social media platforms, that would be a great place. And then, of course, Dark Sanctuary on all the social media platforms as well. We have 2 other feature films that you can go watch right now on pretty much anywhere. Go to Tubi, type in my name, Timothy Stevens, you'll probably find it. Or you could go to our website, spectrographfilms.com.
Cool. And then me, I am on Twitch 5 nights a week, DJing on Twitch, twitch.tv/JoeVirus. And I'm there usually probably at your time, probably midnight, your time on the East Coast. I try to start about, I know, overnights, but I get a lot of.
I was like, oh, you're over there a lot. I should tune in. Oh, never mind.
I have a lot of people that lurk when they just sleep listening to what I'm playing. But it's like my nights are Sunday nights are pretty much like the church. I call it shadow play, and I play a lot of the same music that I played at the church, all the big industrial and goth dance hits of the time. And my Tuesday night is Mohawks versus Mullets, and it's basically alternative, like punk and metal all infused, just whatever. Kind of a random fun. You'll hear the Pixies, you'll hear Suicidal Tendencies, you'll hear Iron Maiden, all those thrashing around, combined with like Sonic Youth and other bands, Smashing Pumpkins. Wednesday night is retro new wave rave, and that's kind of self-explanatory. It's all 80s and 90s rave mixed in. Thursday night's industrial nights called Distortion, all industrial music. Friday night's all goth, so it's a lot of Switchblade Symphony, Sisters of Mercy, Ashes Fall, and that kind of stuff. And and then Saturday is usually like my day off, so I can either go to a concert or just sleep. But that's where you can find me, twitch.tv/JoeVirus. And I have links on that page for a lot of other things too. And I'm on Bandcamp. If you Bandcamp, Zero Clash Audio is my record label that I release all my own stuff on. And it's ZER0 KLASH audio on Bandcamp. So that's you can get all my stuff there that I've released.
Awesome. All right, and last but not least, what do you guys have anything you want to say to whoever watches this, other than watch my documentary?
Yeah, watch it. Obviously, you should realize it's it's like Joe said, it was a labor of love, and a lot of I think it stands for most feature films, because it's not easy to put together a feature film, but this one in particular, it was just hard. It was hard to put together. I just want people to realize, like what I said, that we did it because I wholeheartely believe how important the message of the church is. They had, and you'll see this in the movie, they had and still have a tagline, and it's more of a motto. It's a philosophical thing that they're saying, like, when you enter this space, enter without prejudice. And it became the thing that really was suffused throughout every aspect of what the church did, but it became part of the people that were there. And that's, really think about that. Enter without prejudice. It means when you walk in, you're not going to judge anybody. You shouldn't expect to be judged. But it also means that we're not going to tolerate hatred either. So in without prejudice doesn't mean that we're going to tolerate, bigotry either. But it means no judgment. And if you're struggling, if, like many of us, that when we've come into that space, we maybe have not been in the best place in our lives, and maybe we just need a little bit of grace and forgiveness and acceptance, while we figure ourselves out. And it's so much more like a church than any church. I mean, I grew up going to, Christian churches, and it hurt me, I did not come out unscathed from that experience. And if any one of them had just acted like the church, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I still would have been in there, but I wouldn't have had such a bad experience. And, it's a model for how to be a community. And I think that's why it matters. That's why we made the film. And I hope, people will watch that and, take what you will from it, and realize that it's needed. It's always been needed. It's really needed right now. It's I don't want to get political, but it's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying not to say political things because that's my voice pretty much right now. But to those of you out there who think you're alone and think that there's nobody there to help you or to listen to you, there are avenues, there are places you can call, there are people you can reach out to help. Hotlines. I don't have the numbers on me or I'd be spouting them off, but there are help lines for people, but also there are communities like ours in every city. Maybe not as big as the church, maybe not as accepting as the church is. The church is really accepting of pretty much everybody, especially right now. A big change from the old scene to the new scene is that there were a lot of people who were not into the goth scene at all that started coming out to the It'll Do Club because they were already the It'll Do Club's crowd. And they said, oh, well, there's a new thing that they're doing on Sundays. Let's go check it out. And they came in and they saw all these people dressed in black. Well, the next week they started dressing in black. They started dressing apart, but they weren't doing it to imitate or intimidate. They came because they were accepting of us. Right. And so it's a really cool thing. And I really do believe that every town has, no matter, even if it's 5 to 10 people in that scene, there are people. You can find them, and you should try to find them. Try to look for them, and know that you're not alone. And that's all I can say. Watch this movie. And for me as a kid growing up, man, music were my friends. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. Music were my friends. The songs that I listened to were my buddies. They were, because they would never lie to me. They would never pick on me. They would never cheat, steal from me or anything. They would always be there no matter what. And if I bought the cassette or if I bought the CD, now if the CD broke or the CD scratched or the cassette broke, then I'd have issues. But I'd have and buy it again. But so I get what it's like to be alone, and that, I think that's part of what attracted me to this scene, was because of that. And you're never really alone. You're never really alone.
Yeah, easy to forget that.
Absolutely,
for sure.
And some people won't. Some people will fight me for that, over that. That well, look at this. And I'm like, there's things that can be said and done.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it like he says, it matters. So. But I also would say just enjoy the film. It's easy to get to wax poetic and wax heavy about these things, but it's also just really entertaining. So I hope people really enjoy the film, and I hope people have never. My goal has always been to reach people that have never heard of the church. Because I think there's it. The story is that interesting, that if you've never heard of the church, maybe you've never been to a goth club, you should check this out. You might find yourself in a goth club next weekend after watching it.
Absolutely.
That's the one thing I wish would happen, is that more people would like, okay, so maybe it's not all just Marilyn Manson, maybe it's not all, maybe it's not all just, Charles Manson. I don't know what these people think the goth kids are like. They all think it's Columbine,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're going through a third wave of like satanic panic.
100%.
Like legit. I thought we left that.
I was kicked out of a mall in
90s.
'99. I was kicked out of a mall in '99 right after Columbine.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was wearing a black trench coat. I was in my 20s. I wasn't like a teenager. I was in my 20s, and I was walking around, and I got kicked out of the mall because they didn't like the way I looked. And
wow.
That was messed up, man. It was really messed up.
Yeah.
But
the funny thing is, like, they think that we're all Satanists, but a lot of us are Satanists.
Exactly.
But it's not what you think it is.
No.
I mean, I'm not a Satanist, but I know people that are, and it's not what you think. So anyway, I'm preaching to the choir there.
It's not what they think, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on here, guys. This was great.
Yep. Hell Satan. No.
Eric, thank you so much for having us, man.
No,
yeah, this was great, man. I really appreciate it.
Feel free to hang out after the credits roll, but you definitely don't have to.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.